Good morning. It looks like we've got everybody in here that's coming at the moment, so thank you all so much for coming. It's been such a delight this February. Fortunately, today is the best weather we've had. It's time for sunshine, and even though we've got a nice breeze, at least it's not that chilly one we had the first week we were here. So it's so nice to see all the familiar faces, see new faces, and welcome to History Bytes 2026. As I told us in the very beginning, this February, this is the 25th year of History Bytes, and it just gets better every year because of you guys. And because we have a videographer, and we also have an audio sound person over here, Alex, and we have Rick Montgomery from Island TV, and he's able to post these things on the internet within a week to 10 days after the actual History Bite. So you can go to our History Center to see these online. Sign up if you're not a member, please. And at a later time, it'll also be on Rick's YouTube channel. So thank you. You too can be on TV at any time. This library has so many beautiful memories for me, and I'm not going to share the same thing every time, but we're just so blessed to have Johann Fuss Library Foundation supporting us and inviting us to come in February. Bobby's in a meeting upstairs. Bobby Marquis and Julianne over here are just great helping us put this program together, offering this beautiful space and inviting us to come back, hopefully, every February. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for being part of it. We also have a lot of little notes to talk about, which I mentioned our new program at the History Center. This is our new pamphlet. If you haven't been to the History Center, the new project is open, and it's a place that you need to take your family, take your friends, guests in town, send your neighbor. Please go see it. Who has been to see it in this audience? Okay, it just opened in November. Look at this. I'm really disappointed. You guys are not holding up to Boca Grande history. You need to make a point to visit it because this is exceptionally done. Our fantastic board through the years, this is a dream come true. This is only the beginning of what can happen. And it starts back in the beginning of Boca Grande. It's a visual, it's a hands-on. We've been able to invite the Island School to participate and go through things. Some of my grandfather's fishing reels that my cousin Park so generously donated to the History Center are there. We're so thankful for Rosemarie and Jim Blaha, who we're honoring this season. Not just the month of February, but all year. They came on board with us at the History Center about 10 years ago, and their love and their commitment, not only to Boca Grande history, but to history itself, has really helped us grow and expand our horizons. And I have pages of programs and books that Jim has documented, notebooks. There's something, if you want to know something about Boca Grande, go in there and ask him about that title in the actual notebook, or they can help you look for it online. Photos, it's all so much hard work and love and dedication to detail that it's just fabulous, and we're so thankful for that. And we have a few board members here today. We've got John Snyder, president. Raise your hand, Johns. We've got Marvin Futch Detloff up there. Raise your hand, Marvin. Karen, Grace is out here. Terry's here. Past board members are here. Pam is here. There's so many, and it takes a community, it takes a family, it takes a love for history to pull this job together, and it's volunteer. We only have a few paid employees. So it's a volunteer program, and you can all volunteer after you come visit. And you've got to visit because it's monumental. It's such a great exhibition, and it's necessary for you to learn the history. So thank you all. You can also donate to the Legacy Fund. We have ongoing programs. Next week is our last History Bite on, I don't have the one, but March the 2nd. We have a show and tell type thing downtown where there will be old photos of our landmarks and different we can't do all the businesses at one time, but it's a storytelling that you walk through of photos of some of the old businesses, our old landmarks. And this is an old book that I refer to all these. It's fun to get into January and February, and I pull out all these old things that I have, treasures that tell some stories. But this just says what a landmark is: a familiar object in the landscape serving as a guide to a loyalty otherwise lost or forgotten. So says Mr. Webster in his ample dictionary. With this in mind, Tarpon Press, which was it was only printed 3 books, in the 3rd publication seeks to identify some of the familiar and past landmarks on Boca Grande, Gasparilla Island, as it hurries with the increasing speed down its course of histories. So many of the islands with shaking heads look at the new buildings, reappointments of land once considered valuable open space, now uses of the beach area, now public parks. There's also the loss of our local animals, our trees, flowers, and underbrush that silently link the island together. And one of the things that I've noticed about the changes in the island, and no politics involved, the building space, and it's not just in the island. I moved across the bridge to my other little town, Placida, that always felt like it was part of Boca Grande anyhow, is the development. And in Boca Grande, there used to be this bounty of key lime trees, orange trees, tangerines, avocados, mango trees galore. And if you look around, you really can't see many of those anymore because people decided building a house was more important than having the green space. So as I sat out this morning in my yard, listening to the birds sing and just listening to the quiet and not listening to the news, I just reflect on that. It was so wonderful to go out in your yard and pick a key lime because you're cooking fish or you're having a beer or Coca-Cola or whatever. You squeeze lime in everything, and it's just sad to see that development has taken our green trees, so our animals have no place to go. We can't breathe the fresh air, and it's just something to think about. And as a water girl and an aquarian, I think about the waters and the nature and everything. I think part of that's going to bring us to our talk today. I just want to say a couple more thank yous to our past directors and at the History Center, you can find these resources too. We have great books, but we were so thankful to have Ted and Sally Van Italy, Bobby, Charlie Blanchard, Kim Kyle, and so many more who worked on some of these books that we have available. In the library, we had this great book fair here a couple weeks ago, and they were gracious enough to let the History Center be here. So we all work together. It is a community, and let's keep it a loving community. Let's all share that love that we talked about last week, all week Valentine's, and February is my birthday month. When I turned 50 a few years back, I said I'm celebrating for the whole month. And yesterday I had a great gift given to me. I was invited to a luncheon at the Gasparilla Inn, and I was like, well, I don't know, do you want to go this? It was fabulous. It was about the histories of the wines and the dinners at the White House. What a great presentation it was, and I learned so much. You learn every single day. So thank you to Friends for that one, and my friend who gave me the gift. Okay, I think we're about ready to start. Tom Knight, who's here from the Knight family, and from Mark Cabo, said I can't talk much about his family, so I'm going to let him talk about it. But I did have the pleasure to work with Tom's daughter, Melissa, wherever she's hiding. And when she was in college, she volunteered for me and for the Chamber of Commerce to work with the tarpon tournaments, the world's richest tarpon tournaments. Well, Melissa helped make it much richer, not only with her charismatic enthusiasm and her devotion, she was able to connect us with many corporate organizations. And we had, as her dad said, probably the most gifts to ever give away. Plus, we received money, and it was a wonderful project to work on with Melissa. And I'm so happy to see her now, and she does have a great job these days working in the Sheriff's Department for Charlotte County. So thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for Tom. So I think we have a few knights in the audience. So we have, can we get them to raise their hand? I think we have a surprise guest over here. Mary Vickers Knight is here, and John's Knight's here, Thomas and Melissa. This family, and I don't even know how far it goes back, but I know it goes into the 1800s, and earliest settlers here in Boca Grande. So we're so excited to have Tom Knight speak to us today, speak to us about growing up a little bit in Boca Grande, moving on, his career in the service, and then his time at Mercabo and Mercury Marine. Welcome, Thomas Knight. Oh, thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Hope I can get by with this. I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me. I grew up here on Boca Grande, and I can luckily say that I'm one of the last class to graduate from Boca Grande High School in 1963. Okay, there was 4 of us, 2 boys, 2 girls. But it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And we did things in our school here that you can't do other places. You wouldn't even think of it. We wanted to raise money for a funded school. One day the boys would bring their axes in. The next day they'd bring their fillet knives to school. We would go cut swamp cabbage one day, clean mother the next day, and they'd have a fish fry Saturday night. The school participated in it. I mean, this stuff you can't even think about doing in schools today. Betsy and I had lunch a couple months ago. She approached me about this, and we talked a few things. You don't hear about it anymore, like when you come in Bayou to the left toward Boca Grande Marina, used to be a dock called the L Dock. Nobody mentions it, just you don't see it anywhere. You don't see the car bridge going down 4th Street. You went from the main part of the island to the golf course. Nobody mentions the Japanese bridge, which is a walkover bridge mid-golf course by the clubhouse. Just little things like that, and it's things that we grew up with, and we miss them. Charter boat docks in front of the Pink Elephant, there was about 55 slips there, and during the season, most of them were full every year. So it's just a lot of things there. So I'll make this about me. This is more about Mercabo, so I understand people want to hear about. Mercury came to Placida in actually bought the property late 1969. They opened up, began testing April 1970. I went to work for them in July 1970. Originally, Mercury, when it came down, I can show you on the picture here, there was one building. It had been used for a number of things. My father-in-law built it because the property was his originally. There was an office for the manager, secretary. There was a department called Boathouse Bulletins. And the carpenter also worked in there, and the mechanic shop was in the one building. The Boathouse Bulletin department was kind of a unique section, and what that was, a boat manufacturer would come up with a new model, a new design, or whatever. They would contact Mercury. They would take one of the boats and send it down. It would be rated for whatever horsepower that the manufacturer wanted. Mercury would take the boat, put their engine on it, run it through the quarter-mile stretch, clock it, and get the specs down, and they would take and put a different engine on it. They'd check with the manufacturer, either smaller or bigger, just to compare them. And when they got all this, they got all the stats, speed, stuff. Then they would hire models to come in, and they would photograph the boat. If it was a fishing boat, they would have fishing tackle. If it was a boat you would use for picnicking or something, they had all the picnicking stuff. They had the complete inventory of anything that people do with boating. They did all this and gave those pictures back to the manufacturer. So there in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if most of those pictures you saw in these catalogs, even though it looked offshore, were shot here at Boca Grande and Charlotte Harbor and in the Gulf. You let people don't know, you just show the boat in the water. It's a fishing boat without riggers, you think they're offshore. They could be a half mile off the beach out here and just the angle you take the picture. And that was very interesting, and there was, it went on continuously, and they would actually send those over to different states for the manufacturer. Maybe they'd have them in Texas. They're doing a whole new line. They would send that Boathouse Bulletin crew to Texas for the week to do all the photography for them. So and that was interesting. So, and also Mercury, for years, donated engines to the Lemon Bay High School for the shop class. No charge. They donate them. At the end of the year, the school can do what they want to with them. A couple outboards, a couple stern drives, all free. Just they want to be better, good neighbors. They also work with the sheriff's department and everything as far as helping keep their boats running at times. And if they had any questions or serious service problems, they could call and get information. Also, Mercury would, like if you have a boat, you have a little issue, you want to call and ask a question, they would answer it to a degree, but they didn't want to go all the way because they didn't want to interfere with the marinas that had the certified mechanics, interfere with them thinking they're trying to take their business or run what they're doing away. So they had to walk a tight line there. And they hired run about 25 to 30 employees year round. And then for 2 years, they contracted to do the testing for Harley Davidson motorcycles. That was 2 years, and for that period of 2 years, there were over 100 employees. They ran a motorcycle 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The test boats ran 5 days a week, unless there's a special test, 8 hours a day, no matter what the test was. Some was just paints, some was prototype engines, other was parts. If all of a sudden out in the field they're getting complaints, certain things going wrong with boats doing certain things, they would take an engine. We had different hulls, different style of boats, everything. They would rig that boat to what the problem was, and they would go run it through the same test. If it run into the ground, beach it, run over a log. We had a log with floats on the end, they would jump, check the lower units. They did that to research for engineering. They would keep track of everything. The drivers would start at 7:30 in the morning, because I started as a driver. You drove at 7:30, came in at 10 for a 15-minute break, went back out, came in at 12 for a 30-minute break, went back out at 12:30 to 3:30. You were running all the time. The drivers were on strict instructions. Any boats fishing or idling in the waterway, you slow down. All bridges, you slowed down regardless. That was instructions. Somebody was aground or broke down, weren't allowed to tow them, but we could go to the marina and get them some help on the way. We couldn't take them in the boat as passengers because we only had one seat, one life jacket, and that was it. So you couldn't put them in the boat with us. Another thing, insurance purposes wouldn't be covered. So they did a lot of good. And there's a lot of people here seeing the yellow boats, what they used to be. And I was asked a while ago what happened to them when they left. A lot of them some went to Lake X up around Orlando. Some went to Wisconsin, but the majority went to Alabama, where they moved the test center for a couple of years. And it was up a river, so they didn't get the same results. And the reason that Mercury settled here was because they did some surveys. They were offered land and permits, expedited permits to do the construction and development other areas around the Gulf Coast of the United States. They settled here because they did some research and they found the area here was the continuously harshest marine environment due to the salinity and stuff in the water. And didn't think about it. You go look north, you don't have some of the barnacles and orchards like we have here. Get down around Naples further south, you don't have the same growth. And it's you don't realize that till you found it out. That's why they moved here. And they moved out of Siesta Key, and the reason they left there, when Brunswick bought Mercury, they leased the property from Key Kafer, which started Mercury, and that lease run out. they wanted to find a better place with more room so they could expand. So hence they bought it Placida. I know a little bit about that because it happened my father-in-law owned the land they bought. So when they bought, there's two separate purchases. The first purchase was a center section you see with all the buildings there, and I'll point that out later. And on that side of the road, on the creek side, they bought those, and like I said, they used the one building. They stayed there until they got the others built. And they built 10 rooms, looks like a motel here, which that's turned into a conference center. They had 10 rooms there. Engineers would come and stay. The problem was a lot of engineers didn't want to come here because they had to spend too much time cleaning their tools up at the end of the day to get the salt and stuff out because the salt was eating their tools up. And that's what they were here for, to help with the engines. So one time the president of Mercury had had a staff meeting down at the conference center, or the rooms. It was 10 rooms, had a lounge, dining room, and a chef, and one housekeeper. He came down a couple of times, and he brought another group down with him of the presidents, and they decided if they want to do it more, they could make it bigger. So they added the end section on, 5 more rooms with a conference room, put the pool and tennis courts in. And they started using it that way more often because they did have a conference room designated and it wasn't using a lounge, switching back in two. And that started in Mercabo Conference Center. Of course, then we added more. So, like I say, I started as a test driver. I drove 6 months. Then Mercury took in a boat, a 47-foot sport fish. It's part of a payment. I don't know about that, and they decided they wanted to bring it to Mercabo. They had no facility to accommodate it in Florida. So they brought it, and so I offered to put in for the job. Well, they hired a captain from the East Coast, because that's where the boat was. When it came over, they wanted to mate, so I put in for the mate's job. So I mated on the boat. First 2 years, and then the third year, they put the conference center under the captain of the boat because having division meetings and stuff there. So I was a first mate and assistant manager. This went on for about 7.5 more years. And they come down just kind of cutting back here and there. So they came down, our boss in human resources, and they terminated the captain and offered me the job. So I took over the captain's job and manager at the conference center, and I was there for 20 years. Best decision I've made. It was a unique position to be in. In order to use a conference center, you had to be a vice president of a division or above, or a corporate trainer. Policy was no vacations. They didn't want any problems with the IRS because being a Tesla center, every tax brackets and all that, no vacations, which made it great. My unique circumstance was every time I wanted to deal with anybody, I had to deal with a vice president. And that could be interesting. Of course, most of the time you get pushed off the secretary and you get things done. So, but by doing this, it helped me out a lot. I learned a lot from it. I worked with Mercury. I represented Brunswick in a number of things that went on in the area. Like I say, they decided they wanted to buy the piece where the boat ramp is now in Placida, was a second purchase. They bought that strictly for a buffer zone for the test center. So nobody could build right to them. And they kept it that way for a number of years. And we kept getting trash, debris dumped on the property and stuff. And of course, anything comes up, property owner's responsible. So I talked to my boss, which was at the time in the corporate office, was over all the corporate properties. And we went to the county. He told me to go to the county, see if they would be interested in leasing it for a boat ramp, which I did. Met with the county commissioner. In fact, Mac Horton, he's passed away now. He was chairman. I met with him. Yes. Lawyers got together, found out. Brunswick leases it. somebody gets hurt, they can still sue Brunswick, the property owner. So Brunswick deeded the boat ramp to the county. That's how Cedar Boat Ramp got there. So the county, where the boat ramp is, a partial on the other side where that canal goes up, they sold that. And it was sold. And Jack Claudier was one that bought it. He's passed away too. Sold it to the county. Then that's where overflow parking is supposed to go now for that. And there's got more plans in the works for more boat ramps and more parking space to get the cars off the road. And like I say, the unique part of it being my position, dealing with all the vice presidents and stuff, boat manufacturers would come in because they could be guests of them and have meetings where they wanted to do. I would also deal with the sheriff department. I got Charlotte County Sheriff Department. They wanted some boats. I met with Sea Ray. They come up with a package. Charlotte County bought 3 Sea Ray Lagunas at one time. Lee County wanted a boat. I met with Lee County. They wanted a Baja. Managed to get that worked out through Baja. They all got discounts. And it's not a me speech. This is what Brunswick did. It was for Brunswick. So we're just trying to be good neighbors and help. The number of people that came to Mercabo really increased over the years. But what really got amazing, after we did the expansion, it seemed like all the February board meetings they used to have in Chicago got transferred to Mercabo. I don't know why, but it seemed that every February, the board meetings in February was Mercabo. Twice a year, the facility was swept electronically for bugs. Because of all the people that came in, we had corporations from around the world. For example, we had owners of Yanmar Diesel, Japan. We had other divisions come in because Brunswick owned McGregor, which is Jack Nicklaus Golden Bear. They owned Brunswick Bowling and Billiards. They owned Zebco. They had a defense division, which their defense division made the netting you see, camouflage netting in Afghanistan. They made that in Vietnam. And they also had a company called Sherwood Medical, which they came out, they developed the Monoject needle. They also had in part of the Sherwood Medical was Bluette gloves, which most of you ladies know those are traditional. You can pick up a dime off the counter with it because they were that good. Those are the corporations that came. But in my time there, the groups that came in by invitation, we had GM come down because Mercruiser was one of their biggest dealers or customers. Johnny Morris owned Bass Pro Shop. He came. He came down to see if he wanted to get in the tackle business of saltwater fishing because at the time he was strictly freshwater. I fished him 3 days out here in Boca Grande Pass. 2 months later, he's putting in a saltwater store somewhere, up in Florida. And you know the rest of the stories everywhere. Disney execs, all the little boats in Disney had Mercury motors. They would come to Mercabo. That's the only place the Disney execs would come with any corporations to have a meeting. They weren't allowed to do it according to Disney policies. And they would come down and stay at Mercabo. Most of these meetings lasted a week. Corporate staff, the corporate trainer, had week sessions. They started on Sunday night, they left Friday morning. And all these groups that came down, I had the corporate yacht, which I was the captain on that. I would take them to dinner one night. They'd schedule dinner out. Pink Elephant, first choice. Go to Burnt Store Marina. Cabbage Key, and I used Zeppo a couple of times. But primary source was the Pink Elephant because it was convenient. And sometimes the group are too big and they have to drive part of them, they could switch out and ride back. So monetarily, it really affected the area in a positive way. One time, a group I had come in, think about it, they just John Q. Citizen, till an admiral stepped out of the car. Come find out, it was Navy SEALs. They came in for some testing. They were there 2 days. They tested and left. I'm not going to say what they did, but I know I wouldn't recommend y'all do it. But people like that's what came to Mercabo. It came to this area. And a number of people, the execs that came here, bought here and moved here and are retired. From Naples to Sarasota, all the divisions. It's surprising how many did it. In my position, I was unique. Like I said, I dealt with the top ones. I had things that other ones didn't have, like an unlimited credit card. I'd rent 10 cars at one time for 2 weeks, just so the execs could have them at their convenience, because they'd fly in corporate jet. Just little things like that. And then Zebco, which was a division of Brunswick, decided one time to see if they could do a tackle show at Mercabo. So I flew out to Tulsa, met with John, the president of Zebco, and he told me what he wanted, and I said, we'll do it. He booked me 5 weeks straight, every day, from mid-May through June. And what he did, he sent everything that Zebco sold, including Motor Guide, to Mercabo. Had the reps bring in their 3 or 4 biggest dealers. They would come in, be there 2 days, 2.5 days. They met. He had the engineers from Zebco, he had the marketing people from Zebco, had the finance people from Zebco, so they could, any questions about the product, financing, or anything, they were there to take care of it. And he would convert the conference center, which I was under Brunswick, to a Zebco facility. Zebco banners, he even brought Zebco towels and stuff for them. It looked just like a Zebco facility. And this would go on. My bait bill for that month and a half at Fisherman's Edge was $1,000 a week. And all those buyers, Walmart, Bass Pro, I can't think of all of them now, but they used to all come down. They were there. People that Zebco dealt with that made the lures, artificial baits and everything, they found Zebco was coming, they would send their stuff down in packages for the exposure. It was free exposure for them. I got letters back thanking me for having the merchandise on the properties. I didn't do it, but I took the credit though. And that went on, and just to give you an example, I had the vice president of Zebco had 2 men. There was one customer. They tried to get him down, or get to come down. They sold one of the products that was just a distinct opposite of what we had. The vice president sent all the stuff down for the show, Motor Guide, Zebco, everything. And I asked him, I said, do you think it's worth that? He said, that's about $15,000, $18,000 to get everything shipped and tickets and all this stuff. So they had their meeting, took them fishing a bit. About 2 months later, I got a call from the vice president, because it kind of curiosity me, was it worth $17,000 to come to Mercabo for 2 days? He said, well, I'll let you know, Tom, this is the thing, you can't put monetary value on things. I spent about that $17,000 for 2 men on a contract we had 0 business with. I wanted 10%. I said, what'd you get? 10? He says, no, I did better. I said, 15? No, a little better. I said, 25. He said, no, Tom. He says, they signed a $7 million contract. I got 100% of the business. So you never know what's going to come up with who you're talking to or dealing with at any time. I saw people that was down the ladder. One was a good friend of mine, and I told him, just keep on. And next thing I know, he's a vice president. So you never know. Like I say, I was really glad I took the opportunity to do it when they gave it to me. I met a lot of interesting people, got to do a lot of interesting things, and that's just part of it. So, if anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer them if I can.
Any questions, anyone?
It stayed there for a long time after Macabo left. When was that finally torn down? When the community? Okay.
I think it was torn down when the GICA bought the property. I think because it took a while for that to be dismantled, and we're so thankful that the community supported and the GICA supported that to save that. My only thing is, I wish they'd made it a park,
That's
so
what's
we
supposed to
could
be
all
done.
enjoy it. Yeah, it was planned to be a park at one
Well,
point.
one thing I forgot to mention.
Wait a minute, your daughter's got something to say.
The one building that he referenced down at the bottom, that was the original building, that was my grandfather's workshop that they tore down, but they love history.
Bert Cole was her grandfather, and who, as you know, Boca Grande North was Cole Island when I was growing up. And I remember we used to get the speedboat, right?
My father-in-law ran a taxi boat. He ran a taxi boat when the ferry wasn't running, or if you missed it, take you from here to Boca Grande Club Marina. And this, before when it was sold to Berkeley or Brunswick, this right here was a fish camp, Rose's Fish Camp. Had little homemade docks. There was a couple older trailers there. One or two people lived in. There's 2 or 3 more older trailers that they came down for the weekend. Other people had offered to buy the property from my father-in-law. One outfit wanted to put in a cement plant there, but he wanted something to benefit the people in the area that wouldn't destroy it. So he put that in. And this is where the old ferry used to come in here. And this was added, and then this was the last addition here in 1995. We opened in 96, February. We got it done. 4 days after we said it was finished, we had the board of directors meeting there. There wasn't no pressure.
How far up did they actually go?
It all depended. When I was test driving, one time we went to Bradenton. We went to the outside, the weather was good, so we ran to Bradenton. We've gone to Fort Myers. I've gone as far up to Peace River as Arcadia. Because you got 3 hours to run in the afternoon, and depending on the test, I had one boat had a test reverse locks. You want to thrill, be turning 5,000 RPM with twin engines and throw them in reverse, just to see if they were catching or what or not. Whatever the test called for. Sometimes they had so much time idle, sometimes so much time full throttle. Each test was different. And like the prototypes, Verados were being run out of Macabo over 2 years before they ever hit the market. All they saw was a black engine.
What were the horsepower ratings at the time, and what kind of speeds were you getting?
The biggest one, we came out with 150 right after that, and I finally came up, I think 160 or something like that. And we had some of the boats doing a little over 60. That was single boats. But since then they had, when the Verados came out, we had, the first boat out was a 28-foot Scarab. It'd do 72. That was the first Verado, which I think was about 250. And one of the engines still out in the bay. They took it across, and the driver saw all of a sudden the stern did a little kick, and he looked, and there goes the engine. The yoke where the steering column they put it too thin. It broke, and the engine was gone.
Where were the engines actually manufactured, and did you ever go to the manufacturing plant itself?
Yes, sir. The outboards were manufactured in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Mercruiser was manufactured for a number of years in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I went to both facilities. It's unique to see it. The facility, which was the main office for Mercruiser, was on US 41 in Fond du Lac, and it's 1 mile from the 41 from one corner of the building to the other. Okay, loosely interpreted, the fellow that named it is supposed to be Cape. And what he was looking at was a peninsula, the way it shaped up there between the trestle and the bridge. Looks like a peninsula or cape. That's where he got it, Mercury Cape.
Why did Macabo leave?
Be honest with you, politics. The president of Brunswick, when he made president of Brunswick, made him a promise. So many consecutive quarters, positive earnings. The last quarter, he was running a little bit short. And he didn't really believe in assets anyway, because I met him before he became president of Brunswick, or Mercury. He didn't believe in assets. So running short, you sell assets. He sold Macabo. Well, he gave it away, but he sold it. No, sir. I worked there 30 years. So. Beg your pardon? They, for basically all-purpose basis, it closed in 1970, but Mercury leased about a year and a half after that, just to run some test boats so they could find another facility. Maybe it was. I like I say, I didn't pay much attention to it after that. I don't know. I don't pay attention to that.
What year did you retire?
I retired in
From Mercury.
from Mercury, 2000. Yes, sir.
One thing that my recollection too is, and from many visits with Tom, it's nice to reconnect with somebody you grew up with, and we hadn't connected in a while. But was in researching some of it was Bert Cole was when he sold it, he was conscientious, as my father was, and John's is Tom's father, John's, and the old timers who were some of the the beginning people here and business people. When he sold that property, he wanted it to be something that would bring commerce to the community. And it brought so many jobs, as he just talked about. And a lot of the commercial fishermen who lost some of their livelihood and as things were getting different, they were the drivers, correct?
Some of them, yes.
I fish with a captain now who said he started out working there on the motors and things, and he still works on boats now today. I think and I know from the original Pink Elephant that I grew up in, and even later PJ Seagrill, and even at Fugates, Temptation, those people came and they enjoy the community. They purchased things. They were part of our community. And yes, yellow boats were noisy, but we always loved seeing them go by and wondered how fast they could go. And I remember too, they really tried hard not to interrupt the fishing and also our environment. I mean, the waters, they were protective. They were courteous. They weren't out there just grinding up the grass and our flats like we have a lot going on today. Any more questions?
You can probably hear me. Tom, you mentioned Lake X. Just to let you know, there's a documentary. So how does Brian fit into all this?
He's my son.
Oh, okay.
Lake X is also where Carl Kiekhaefer, if you go out about the documentary, if it shows it,
Yeah,
he did the 25,000 mile.
that's right.
He did that without stopping the boats. The drivers would actually get from one moving boat to the test boat. They'd switch drivers and they would fuel up underway, 25,000 miles around the lake.
It's all there. Very, very interesting.
So
Brian's your son.
the Knight brothers have been involved with boating since the beginning of time, as well as cattle. And the boatyard, they build a lot of these boats. We still are fortunate enough to have some of the boats that were here. Obviously, John's grew up in it. Mary grew up in it. Thomas did, and Melissa also. And Brian now, if you know, is running the Gasperlin Marina. So they've all got this heart and this sense in our community still. Any more questions? Well, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.